And with that, welcome in everybody to the second episode of the season of Monday Night Quarterback, the football coaches show for Fordham football and the 2-1 Rams, just knocking off the Columbia Lions by 44-24 in the Liberty Cup this weekend. And it's a pleasure to have Coach Joe Moorhead join us to start things off for a look back at that game. Coach, how you feeling after a successful weekend?
Feeling great. Great to be back, fellas.
Now, the Liberty Cup is obviously something that has been an installment ever since you've been a coach here. It was before you, ever since 9/11 the next year. Since then, the two teams, Fordham and Columbia, have played each other every year to remember those who fell in 9/11. Now, for now, the series is ending, but before we get to some of the on-the-field stuff, can you just talk a little bit about what this series has meant to you as a member of the Fordham community?
No, it's a game and a series that's had great historical significance and was played for a very worthy cause. And obviously near and dear to our hearts as Fordham football alums with Kevin Sozik and Nick Brandamarty. So, anything that can honor the first responders of one of the most tragic days in our nation's history and the, characteristics they exhibited of bravery, selflessness, and putting their lives on the line to help other people. Obviously that, makes this type of game, very special.
Now, Coach, you had talked earlier in the week about slowly transitioning Fordham to a football school. Do you feel the homecoming crowd accurately represented the success your team has had over the past few years?
No, I think it's absolutely another step in the right direction. We asked everyone to pack the jack, and the jack was sufficiently packed, so that was awesome. And, it didn't just start with the game. It started with the homecoming tent, the pregame, the palpable feel in the air that something special was about to happen. A homecoming game at a Division I institution, and when you started seeing people leaking behind the one end zone because there weren't any seats left, that should be the norm, not the exception. It was a tremendous turnout. The student section was awesome. Cheerleaders, band, everyone there played a big part, and part of the reason why we're 18-2 at home over the last 3+ years. So it was awesome.
Matt Morrow and Joe Marie taking a look back at the Columbia game with head football coach Joe Moorhead. So let's get into the game itself a little bit. A little bit of a slow start for both sides in this. It's the first game for Columbia of the season. Being in the Ivy League, they start a little bit later. So for you guys, it was a unique challenge. A new staff over there for the Lions and Coach Al Bagnoli. It's their first game of the year. Didn't have really any film to look at coming in to this week. How difficult was it to go into that first half not really knowing what a team in their first game with a completely new system and a completely new staff was going to look like?
Yeah, you're making a lot of educated guesses. I mean, you're making a base game plan off of the things you suspect that that Columbia was going to play in all three phases of the game. And one of our major points the night before in our meeting was adapt, improvise, overcome. Now, offensively, they I would say fortunately played a lot of the things that we anticipated, which was good. I mean, it wasn't exactly the same, but for the most part, it was a lot of things we prepared for. Now, on the opposite end of the spectrum, our defense against their offense, they did a bunch of new stuff that we really hadn't practiced. So I thought our defense did a good job digging in, getting some stops, and it's definitely difficult. It's you're going into the game blind in a lot of respects.
Now, so like you had said, there was a lack of film before, and they'd listed two quarterbacks as the 1 and 1A on the depth chart with Anders Hill and Skylar Morningwig. Did you guys feel that your preparation was adequate for both of them? Morningwig certainly impressed in the passing game. Hill ran it well. How did you feel that they held up against those two very different styles of quarterback?
Yeah, we were anticipating seeing both, and obviously Skylar's a tremendous player from St. Joe's Prep in Philly and had a nice little career, a little run down at Florida, so we knew what to expect from him. And Hill is a guy we've seen in the past, and like you said, a little bit different skill set. Neither of them really truly dual threat guys, but both made plays with their feet. Skylar he did very good. I think he was 21 of 25 for 187, but ultimately it was kind of like the first few games. We gave up some yardage, but ultimately when we needed to stop, we got to stop. We gave up 17 points defensively if you don't count the kickoff return for a touchdown, and if we give up 17 points, we should be able to have an opportunity to win a lot of our games.
This game was a one-possession game at times in the second half, but it was near the end of the first half. But you get a score at the end of that first half. Do you think that was one of the biggest momentum plays going into the half, getting it back to 2 scores and feeling better about the way your team was going into halftime, having extended that lead at that point?
I think that was the biggest positive momentum shift of the game. We were up 14-10. We got them backed up. We used our timeouts there. to try to get the ball back with some time on the clock. And first and second down, we banged the timeout. They ran the clock down a little bit. We got a decent punt return and drove down the field, executed a very good 2-minute drill, punctuated with Robbie's and Kevin's catch and throw. So that definitely, going in 21-10 as opposed to 14-10, you feel a lot better. Now on the opposite end of the spectrum, when we jumped up 28-10, and felt we were riding that wave of momentum and possibly could have, opened that thing up and turned it into a significant win on our part. Their kickoff return for a touchdown swung it the other way and gave them a little bit of belief and credit to Coach Bagnoli and his staff that, these kids came out and, they played hard, they played tough, they played well. They're a much improved football team. So it was great to see once it got to 28-24, we had a nice drive down the field and, kind of were able to, I don't want to say cement the game at that point, but put it in a position where it was a 2-score game.
One of the players who had a really big game for you guys was Faison Odom. Ends up with 2 touchdowns in this game. Let's take a listen to the first one there in the first half.
1st and 10 on the Columbia 28. On the right half, he's right. He drops back in the gun. Throwing deep, wide open to the end zone. Touchdown, Faison Odom. Fordham is on the board first here in the Liberty Cup. The Rams 6, the Lions nothing.
So that was the first score of the game. So Faison gets into this game. He's productive early on. He had a 41-yard touchdown catch as well in the second half of this one. He's a player that you've mentioned. It's tough for a guy like that to produce early on because he's sitting behind a guy who's in the NFL right now in Dan Light. How impressed were you with him this week in that it was one of his real big breakout performances?
Yeah, Faison's a nightmare matchup. I mean, he's a guy who's obviously had a lot of physical skills and a lot of talent, and unfortunately, he hasn't got a lot of significant minutes over the past few years. But he had a good spring. He had an excellent preseason camp, and to have 3 for 90 against Army, and then come back and have another 90-yard day against Columbia and get his first 2 touchdowns, and we had him matched up against the corner there, and it was a double move and got himself open, and I'm glad to see that Faison's moving forward to reaching a lot of the potential that he has.
Now, the one pick notwithstanding, QB Kevin Anderson had almost a perfect game out there offensively. He did it with his legs at points. He did it with his arms. How impressed were you with his performance against that defense?
I'm very impressed with Kevin, and he's making incremental improvements. Every week he's getting a little bit better. You got to figure out a way to have him stop turning the ball over on the first drive of the game. But outside of that, I mean, you have a 300 and whatever yard day passing, 5 touchdowns, and the big thing was the 70 yards rushing, 95 yards gained before losses, and being able to extend plays with his feet when it's not called runs. A couple of key first down runs on 3rd down, or when the pocket broke down, and then some of the design quarterback runs for him to be able to gain yardage and be an additional facet to our offense that the defense needs to prepare for and defend. I think he's, as we've talked about in leading into the season, he's a guy with a tremendous skill set, can beat you with his arm, can beat you with his legs, and Coach Bronner's done an excellent job developing him and teaching him the nuances of our offense. So the sky's the limit. He won Patriot League Offensive Player of the Week, and it was well deserved. And his best football is definitely ahead of him.
We're going to have you take a look ahead of what's coming up next in Monmouth in a little while, but just to finish up, taking a look back at this week. After the win, you guys are 2-1. One of the goals that you set coming into the year every year is to win the Liberty Cup, so you check one of those off the list. What's the feeling of the team from your perspective and the progress they've made through week 3?
Oh, the feeling is great, and we look at it on a weekly basis, and we were able to, through our preparation effort and execution, earn the right during the week with how hard we practice, and then, finish it off with great effort and execution in the game to get to 2-1. And like I said, we're a no-excuse outfit, but if you had, before the season looked at the first 3 games and said if you were able to come out of it 2-1, you'd feel pretty good about it, considering an FBS team, the number 2 ranked team in the country, and then in a rivalry game. Obviously, the expectation level was to be 3-0, but we're ranked 16th in the country. We've been in the top 25 for almost, I believe, 30-plus weeks, and we set a standard of excellence for our football program that we're not going to lower. So we want to be 3-0, but 2-1 with 15 new starters and 9 guys who have never played in a college game before. I think that definitely shows progress in the right direction and bodes well for the remaining part of the schedule.
All right, now it's time to take a look at what's coming up next for the Fordham football team. Continuing to talk here with Fordham football head coach Joe Moorhead. All right, Joe, you guys are 2-1. Now you move on to week number 4, and Monmouth coming in. Not an extensive history between the two schools. Just to start off, what kind of challenges do they present? Having just briefly looked at the film so far, what kind of things do you see from the Hawks?
No, they're a good football team. They played Holy Cross very, very close in the opener and had an opportunity to win that game. Played close, relatively speaking, against Central Michigan at Central Michigan, an FBS team, and then beat Wagner this past week. The Big South is a tough conference. Cody Williams is a quarterback that we know pretty well. He's from Springfield Central in Massachusetts. Tall kid, relatively athletic, good strong arm, very accurate, excellent leader. Levon Cheney's the guy we had at our camp, their running back. I believe Ambush is the receiver, very talented guy. And defensively, I know that by numbers right now, not by names. Number 5, the defensive lineman, is very good. 52, the linebacker. And then 30, the safety, was the Rookie of the Year in the league defensively last year. So they're going to present a great challenge. They're very well coached. Coach has been there for a very, very long time. They have their systems. They believe in what they do. They play very hard. And, like anyone else we play now, it's a feather in their cap when they get an opportunity to come in and play a top 25 team on the road. So we're expecting their best game, and they're going to get ours.
So they had gone to Wagner and forced 4 turnovers out there.
Yeah.
How key is ball security going to be in practice this upcoming week?
Yeah, ball security is job security. So, the two primary indicators of success for a game are turnover margin and explosive plays. So we've got to be able to create turnovers defensively while limiting them offensively, and by the same token, create explosive plays offensively and limit them. So if we're able to do those two things on a weekly basis, we'll have a great opportunity to be successful. Can't win games and turn the football over.
You mentioned it just a little while ago, 18-2 in your tenure here at home at Jack Coffey Field. This is your 3rd straight game at home coming up this weekend. After the loss to Villanova, you get back on the winning track against Columbia. How important is it to have that success at home, and how comfortable do the guys and the staff feel playing at home in the Bronx?
Oh, we're very comfortable. We've got our our protocol, what we do. Have meetings during the morning on Friday, go to our walkthrough, have our pregame meal and meetings, and get up and get ready to play. And the student support has been tremendous. A successful football team galvanizes the student body, the university community, and hopefully New York City as well. And that's the one thing that I would urge. It's, we're not just limited to Fordham students, alumni, and their friends to come to the game. You know what I mean? We're New York City's Division I championship football team. So for the price of a ticket and parking and the product that you see on the field, I would hope that people in the greater metropolitan area understand that there's a great story here that's that is best kept secret in town, is what I'm saying. So hopefully we had 8,000 or whatever at the last game. Hopefully we can have 10,000 and find some other places to put the other people in. And like I said, that should be the expectation level, not the exception.
So like we discussed, you're coming off both homecoming and the Liberty Cup in 1 week. That's an intense rivalry game and a very important game, and now you're transitioning to Monmouth, which, while they're a good program, it's not a traditional rivalry. How do you keep the fire going in practice, knowing that this isn't a team you guys have faced a lot, and just coming off the emotional high of last week?
That's an excellent question, and it's something we talked about on Sunday, that you look at the kind of motivational theme of each game, where Army was an FBS team, Villanova it's the number 2 team in the country, Columbia it's your rivalry game for the Liberty Cup, and Monmouth being a good team and all, there's really not that cachet of this game means something in particular. And what I told our guys is we talk about competing one at a time at a championship standard, where there's not necessarily anything outside of our intrinsic motivation to play the game. In a lot of ways, it's Fordham versus ourselves, and are we able at a championship standard to have a great week of preparation and play the game at a high level of effort and execution, where there maybe on paper is a really true rallying point, so to speak. So that has been addressed this week with the team.
Fordham football head coach Joe Moorhead. Joe, thanks for stopping by and taking a look at what's coming up next with us, and good luck next week at Monmouth.
Always a pleasure, gentlemen. You guys do a great job.
Thanks, Coach. Good
Thank
to
you.
see you as
Appreciate
always.
it.
We'll
Yep.
talk to you next week. Fordham 2-1 now after a couple of games here at home, losing to Villanova, but then getting back on track against Columbia at the Liberty Cup. So now we're going to move on to our X's and O's segment, and Fordham wide receivers coach Mark DUPUIS is going to join us in just a second. Coach DUPUIS has had the opportunity to coach several All-Patriot League, All-American players in Sam Ajala, Brian Wetzel, Tabucky Jones, but a lot of new faces this year in front of Coach DUPUIS as he joins us now. Coach, thanks for joining us this week on Monday Night Quarterback.
Thank you guys for having me. It's an awesome opportunity to be here.
So as we were just mentioning, Brian Wetzel, Tabucky Jones, and Sam Ajala, three of the best wide receivers to ever come to Fordham and play at Fordham, but you lose all three of those guys. How daunting a challenge is that in the offseason, knowing that, three guys who are just almost essentially automatics at that position are gone, and you got to do it with a lot of new faces coming into this year?
It's a big challenge. And when you look at last year's team, we lost even our fourth receiver. Marcus Jones was a guy who was a senior as well. So just about everybody who played a meaningful role in a game last year was gone, and we knew that heading into the spring. And so it was a huge challenge for our guys. I thought they embraced it well. We've brought in some new freshmen. We've had some veteran guys step up, and it was good to see the guys go out and make some plays this Saturday.
So more on that theme with these freshmen who are clearly very talented, Lumley, Allen, Cattle, Longy. What's it take to get them up to speed? They're clearly, like we'd said, very talented, athletic players, but from your perspective, how difficult is it to get them ready to play in this system?
Well, when they got here this summer, we kind of sat down and had the conversation that, listen, guys, you guys are going to be competing for a starting role from day one, and you guys don't have the time to be freshmen. They had to get in their playbooks and study from the moment that they got here, and they've been working out with Coach Ream since day one, and I think those guys physically were absolutely ready to go. It was just a matter of making sure that they understood the system well enough that they could execute it, on practice one, that they weren't learning a brand new playbook. It was something that they already understood and that we could work on their fundamentals and techniques and things like that, and I think they've come along nicely.
Specifically guys who really haven't had the chance or the time to be freshmen, Austin Longy and Corey Cattle have been really taking hold of that slot position, and they were just thrown right into the fire in West Point. They've both had some really big games, some big catches. What does it mean to see them go out and also be successful as freshmen playing big minutes right away?
It's something, to be honest, that I expected. Once I saw them practice and I realized how good that they were and what the things that they were doing against our own team in practice, I knew that they could do it once they got their feet underneath them in a game. And it was good to get them out against Army and have them, make those plays and develop some confidence. And there's always things to improve, especially in a player's first game. But I think they're becoming more and more confident now as you look into the season. And, by the time that we hit this fourth game of the year, I'm going to look at them as veteran guys who are, starters who have been doing this for a while now.
Like you had mentioned, it's not just freshmen leading the receiving corps. There have been some veteran players who hadn't seen a lot of time, namely Robbie Cantelli, Ben Johnson, and Tony Patrick-Nelly. How important are these guys as to the development of these younger players?
Those guys are the best. I mean, those guys absolutely set a culture last spring. When you look at the numbers that we were down, we had guys taking multiple reps in practice each day, and they fought through, some tough circumstances this past spring. I mean, we had times when there was four wide receivers taking practice reps in the spring. And so they set a culture of hard work for our room that by the time that these freshmen got in, they had no choice but to get immersed into that culture. And, I look at all of those guys as leaders for us, and, I can't say enough about them.
Robbie Cantelli has had a really nice start to the year. Ben Johnson as well. He's a little banged up right now, but Robbie had a real highlight reel touchdown catch in the game against Columbia. Let's take a listen to Robbie's catch near the end of the first half.
Gets the snap. Looking to his left. He has Edmonds over there, but look to the end zone. One-handed grab. Cantelli for the score. Touchdown Rams in the final seconds of the second quarter. A huge score. Extra point coming. It's Fordham 20, Columbia 10.
We talked to Coach Moorhead about how this was such a positive momentum-building play, going up 2 scores at the end of the half. But what else does this say about Robbie Cantelli, that as a guy who, he's not just a freshman coming in as highly touted as some of these other guys. He's been sitting behind All-Americans and All-Patriot League players, but he still has the ability to come in and not just make big plays, but highlight reel catches, diving one-handed catches in the end zone.
It says a lot about Robbie as a person, and when you look at him not being highly touted, Robbie walked on here, and he was not even a scholarship guy for us, and he has become the receiver that he has because of his work ethic. When he got in here, he was maybe 10 or 11 out of our entire wide receiver depth chart, and now he's up there, in the top 3 game in and game out for us, and not just in the top 3 function. He's making game-changing plays for us. So, it speaks to what he's done from a, physical and mental standpoint, and he's one of the hardest working, probably the hardest working player that I've ever coached. So, he's awesome.
One of the difficult things about bringing your freshmen up to speed is this advanced signal system that you guys use to run the no huddle. How much time does that take to install these young players? Because just watching it, from the booth in the game, it's an extremely complex system down there.
It is, and you have to make sure that these guys are functioning, and part of that is just, when we teach the play, you got to be speaking sign language to these kids. And so you'll say the name of the play, but you got to be standing up in the front of the room doing the signal as well. And we make sure that we get enough repetitions each week at a play that's going to be in the game plan, that if these guys don't know the signal, they're definitely in trouble.
Even coming into a complex system, it's an offense that benefits the wide receiver. These guys, if they play the right way and they prepare the right way, have the ability to put up some huge numbers. Is it easy to get guys coming into the system to buy in, to say, hey, you're going to have to put in some work, but look at the rewards that you can get the last couple of years?
Absolutely, and you turn on the tape, the install tapes from previous seasons, it's all Brian and Sam and Tabucky making the plays that we're putting in for this year, and you just say, hey, if you can figure out how to do X, Y, Z, then you can make this play too. And I think it's something that our guys have bought into. And, to be honest, those old guys, they left room to improve on what they did. And that's really the goal that we've set in our room, is to be even better moving forward. And I think it's something we can do.
So there has been a transition at the quarterback position from Michael Niebuhr to Kevin Anderson. As somebody who runs an offense so predicated on timing, what was it like working with Kevin in the offseason to ensure that he would really be able to master this no-huddle spread?
I mean, Kevin is as hard a worker as I've seen at quarterback, and he's a tremendous leader. So he was doing a lot of that work on his own with the guys, meeting up for them, late night throwing sessions, early morning throwing sessions, and that was something that I think they took care of on their own. You look at Kevin being named captain of this team, I think as an underclassman, it kind of points to what they were doing together, developing that timing, that chemistry, absolutely.
Before we let you go, just one more about some of the freshmen. Talked about how Cattle and Longy have really just been thrown into the fire and had to learn on the fly how to not be freshmen. But two other guys who have kind of been more the freshman route, where you got to sit and learn a little bit. Jonathan Lumley and Jordan Allen, guys, when you see them on the field, look like they have a world of talent. What's the difference, or how do you get them to prepare differently in terms of, Cattle and Longy are out there making the plays, they're getting the minutes, but those are two guys are going to be big factors for you, but they didn't see as much time early on. What's the message to those guys and how they have to prepare?
Well, I think both of them understand that they have amazing potential as players, and so they need to be a little bit intrinsically motivated to understand their ceiling is as high as anybody who's ever come here and played wide receiver. So it is just a matter of making sure that, each week we know that they know the game plan inside and out, that they know all of their adjustments, and that they're ready to execute it at a high level. And we need to make sure that they continue to play with a level of consistency that can win games for us, and they are, like you said, going to be a major factor moving forward.
Well, again, thank you so much, Coach Dupuis, for taking the time to meet with us, and best of luck in the preparation for Monmouth.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Coach. That's Coach Mark Dupuis, wide receivers coach for the Fordham football team on X's and O's. And with that, we'll begin to transition to our Inside the Huddle segment. Tight end Faison Odom and defensive back Jihad Pretlow will make their way over to us now, and we'll get to talk to two of these guys, two of the key players in the 44-24 victory for Fordham over Columbia in the Liberty Cup battle, and also homecoming. So we start to get them to file in, have to move some seats around. All right, awesome, guys. Guys, thanks for joining us here on Inside the Huddle. Thanks for stopping by. You guys were some of the key performers. That's what you get. You get to come to Applebee's and be on the show. Isn't it pretty sweet?
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man.
I'm sure not as cool as the actual win on Saturday. So before we get to the on-the-field stuff here on Inside the Huddle, just the atmosphere of the game. There's two, cool aspects to the atmosphere of this game. There's the Liberty Cup and homecoming. So could the two of you guys just kind of go into what being a part of that atmosphere is like on Saturday against Columbia?
That was awesome. Like, just whenever we came out after our stretching, just to look up in the stands, and like the whole thing is just like crowded. It was like a great feeling just to have that support from our fans and all that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the fan support is the best part about it. Smelling the barbecues out there where everybody tailgate, that's pretty cool. And to be a part of such a memorial game as the Liberty Cup, FBS to FCS school, is that the competition might lag a little bit, but still it's Division I football players everywhere. That's been my biggest thing, that I think that I wasn't know what to expect from that aspect, but I see that there's guys here who play and there's guys who want to play here. So that's been my biggest thing thus far.
And Faison, you had been battling injuries and behind NFL tight end Dan Light for the past few years. How awesome was it to have that big-time breakout game where you were really one of the stars on offense?
It was really sweet. I mean, playing behind Dan, although I'm like an eager, anxious guy, I've always wanted to play. But I think playing behind him helped me out a lot because I was able just to learn, like, not just the physical part of the game, but the mental part, because he's a guy that was really savvy. So playing behind him was, like, very, very beneficial to me. So to come out and have that type of game, it was really awesome.
We took a look at your first touchdown with Coach Moorhead. You had a second one, a 41-yard reception from Kevin Anderson in the second half. Let's take a listen to that one now.
Play clock down to 10. Ball on the left hash. Edmonds to his left. Anderson gets it in the gun, dropping back, looking deep over the middle of the field. Faison Odom at the 10 makes the catch and into the end zone for the touchdown. A 41-yard strike with 7:45 remaining in the fourth quarter, and Fordham goes up 40-24.
Now, Faison, not many tight ends have the ability to just run straight down the middle of the field and blow by everyone there. Coach Moorhead specifically calling you a matchup nightmare. Are you feeling the most comfortable you ever have here now that you've had this kind of breakout game and you have a game like that where, you know, it's really tough for a team like Columbia or really just any team to send a matchup against you when you can have two touchdowns in this game last week?
After having that game, yes, definitely. I mean, the very first game, the Army game, I was kind of nervous. It was my first start. I wasn't comfortable at all, but having that, like, after this Columbia game, I'm definitely more comfortable. So.
Great. And Jihad, you had 13 total tackles, I believe, 6 individual and 7 assisted. And defensive backs, obviously, you have a ton of responsibility. You're back in coverage. You're supposed to let no one beat you. What enables you to get up the field and make those open field stops that are so crucial to a defense?
Well, before I came to Fordham, my first 2 years, I was playing safety, and playing under Coach Phil Snow, my responsibility was to cover, and also my responsibility was to stop the run. So I became accustomed to triggering fast, and once I see a certain movement by either by the O-line or a tight end, I can tell whether it's going to be a pass or a run. So my triggering off of that is just allows me to make a lot of plays in the backfield or make plays down the field.
Another one of your responsibilities now coming to the Rams is to handle the kick return duties, and you broke off a big one against Columbia. Let's take a listen to that one.
He'll go to Pretlow at the 3 near the right hash. He'll run it up that right hash. He's got a hole. Makes another man miss. He's at the 30, the 35. Has to pick the kicker at the 50. Jukes him out. Running back to the middle of the field into the Columbia 45. And finally brought down Jihad Pretlow. He's done good things on defense so far today, and now he comes up with a huge kickoff return to put Fordham in Columbia territory to start this drive.
Now, even though you guys didn't end up scoring on that drive, it came directly after they returned a kick for a touchdown. So momentum could have swung right there to them. They had cut it to a close game. The second half, a lot closer than the last couple of years against Columbia. But then you have a kickoff return like that kind of swings momentum back into Fordham's way. You know, how seriously do you have to take the special teams aspect? You're starting out there. You're moving to a new position in corner. You have to take that seriously, but you also have a huge responsibility to make plays like that and game-changing plays.
I pride myself on those responsibilities. I haven't had the opportunity to get the ball in my hands since I was at Temple at kick return and punt return like that. And before Temple, I was previously a running back. So just to have the ball in my hands again is special to me, and that's why I take it so serious. I just want to be a playmaker all around and help my team in the best way that I can.
Faison, as we discussed earlier, you've had quite a few injuries, unfortunately, in your time here. Now, like you said, you're an anxious guy and you have a ton of talent. How hard is it to just, force yourself to sit and rehab, just to keep in the mental state as I'm going to be ready to go as soon as possible, but I need to take care of myself physically?
It's very tough just because I want to be able to play and, help my team. But at the same time, I can't, allow myself to go out there when I'm not ready and get hurt even more than what I am. And because at the end of the day, if I can't play, then I'm really no use to the team.
Michael Niebrick was throwing passes, and Peter Matzel was backing him up the last couple of years. Two very, very good quarterbacks. You only come in with a handful of receptions into this season, and now as you start to break out, it's Kevin Anderson who's throwing you the football. What's it like working with Kevin?
Oh, just like Coach Dupe said before, Kevin is a guy, late night, early morning, we would all go out and just, throw the ball, just throw routes, run routes, throw the ball. And, doing that helped us develop this really tight chemistry with him. So, yeah.
Jihad, this defensive backfield is entirely new. J.Q. Bowers had a handful of starts this year, but he wasn't a full-time, last year, but he wasn't a full-time starter. What's it been like as you transition to kind of transition with these other three guys as if, all right, it's our time, we're the starters now? What's the mentality back there?
The mentality is to be the best DB corps we can be. You know, if that means being the best in the Patriots, then we got to be the best in the Patriots. If that means being the best in the country, then we got to be the best in the country. I've been fortunate enough to play with guys at Temple who right now is on the roll right now, you know, and I kind of took that mentality to here. We used to call ourselves the Dirty Birds. And pretty much what the Dirty Birds is a group of guys who just lock down anybody, whoever it was, you know. I had the opportunity to play against Justin Hardy from BCU, and the whole mentality of that game was just, you know, we know who he is, but he don't know who we are, so let's show him. And that's what I bring here to Fordham, you know. Whoever we go against, nobody know who we are because we're a whole new group of guys who are coming in, but at the end of the game, they're going to know.
Before we let you guys go here on X's and inside the huddle, just want to ask you guys are in somewhat of a similar situation in that, Jihad, coming from Temple, you have to prepare a different way in that you're with a new team, you have that new defensive backfield, and Faison, now that Dan is gone and has graduated, you came into this year knowing you'd have more of an expanded role, hopefully being more healthy than the past, knowing you'd get more touches this season. So for both of you, knowing that you had to come into this season with different roles than the past in new situations, how did that change the way you came into the offseason and prepared for this specific season?
Definitely, I approach things with a much higher level of focus, and just like Coach Moorhead always tell us, like we have to always look at like the little things. So with everything I did, I always looked at the little things, looked at what I could do better in that aspect. So that's what I brought to it.
With me, I just figured that I just got to continue to stay on the path that I'm on. No matter what conference I'm in, no matter what level of Division I I'm in, I just got to continue to play with the same confidence and hope that the confidence I have rubs off on the guys that I'm playing with and that we can keep things going. You know, I lost to Fordham when I was at Temple, so I knew this program wasn't a slouch program. You know, so I came in here with a hard nose, ready to work, and put my fingers in the dirt, and that's how I continue to approach every game and every week.
And just the last question for you guys. In looking at your bios, I saw that you're both high school basketball players. Game of one-on-one. I know Faison got a little height on you. Who wins?
I'm going to win. I'll drop
You didn't hesitate at all there.
No way.
No, he's not.
Me.
He's confident, but you're
Definitely
going to take him down?
Yeah.
This is gonna be an off-season challenge. I can feel it.
We'll have to make that happen one day, guys. Thanks so much for joining us on Inside the Huddle. Tight end, Faison Hodem, defensive back, Jihad Pretlow. Guys, appreciate you guys joining us on Monday Night Quarterback.
Thank you.
And with that, we will transition into a second X's and O's segment here on the second week of Monday Night Quarterback. Coming up, we're going to talk to Assistant Athletic Director for Athletic Performance, Tim Ream, as Tim makes his way over. Coach Ream, nice to meet you. Thanks for joining us this week on Monday Night Quarterback.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, guys. How you doing?
Absolutely.
See ya.
First things first, you're new here to Fordham. How has your experience been working with the Rams here in 2015?
It's been great. I mean, right from day one, even when I came up here on the interview, it was just I had a great feeling about this place. The people, everyone from the top down. The team is made up of phenomenal guys. The coaching staff from Coach Moorhead on down. It's just great people. So, I really enjoy coming to work every single day. It's been an easy transition. I'm actually from North Jersey, so, just over the bridge. So, it's been great. I can't really say one negative thing about it.
Greg had mentioned when discussing them at practice that he thinks the guys look more in shape and more ready to go physically than ever before. What kind of new programming have you installed to ensure their physical success?
Yeah, I mean, we got after it right from the get-go. I got onto campus in April. And, right from then on, we have our strength and conditioning program is different, has different elements to it. We lift, we run, we talk about sports nutrition. So really all of it kind of comes together and meshes. You can't just do one without the other. So from a lifting standpoint, it's a lot of Olympic and power lifts. It's not strictly turning guys into bodybuilders because they have to be able to move, they have to be flexible, they have to be able to jump and run and all that kind of stuff. While also being resistant to injury, which is the most important thing. So, like I said, it's a combination. We'll do the Olympic lifts, we'll clean, we'll squat, we'll bench, but just also a lot of different things from a functional standpoint that keep the guys ready for, what a football game requires.
And there's a stigma around the strength and conditioning, like you had mentioned, that it's just how much can I get these guys to bench press, how much can I get you guys to squat, when in reality, it's almost a science. You know, what's the perfect athletic composition? How much studying has it taken you to find your correct mix?
Yeah, I mean, it's, you know what, I've done a couple internships. I've had experiences dealing with different coaches, and then what you kind of do is you kind of pick and choose what you like, and, you kind of discard what you don't like. And, there's no perfect way of doing it. It's kind of just your way and the way that you can best implement in the program given the facility and, the kind of stuff that you have to deal with. But, it's just one of those things where I've been very fortunate to have opportunities to do internships with places such as Holy Cross and UMass and the New York Giants where, like I said, you learn things from people who have been in the game a long time, and then you kind of just put your blend together and, and it changes every year. It's not, like the strength coach I am today is different than what I was doing a year ago or 2 years ago as well.
One of the guys who, when speaking with him in the offseason, who said he was going to put some real focus into improving his strength and conditioning, wanted to put on some muscle but also not lose that athleticism, was running back Chase Edmonds, and he's off to another great year. Let's take a look at one of the big plays that he made this week against Columbia.
Edmonds to his right, and he'll give to Edmonds out of the gun. He's going straight up the middle, now trying to bounce to the right side. He breaks a few tackles. He's to midfield. He could go. He's at the 40, the 30 of Columbia, the 20, down to the 10. One man to beat. Did he get in? He's down at the 1-yard line. Edmonds cannot believe it. He went from his own 26 to the Columbia 1.
Ends up getting 73 yards on that play. Then he punches it in on the next play for the touchdown. What makes Chase able to have those kinds of plays where he's a tough runner between the tackles, he can make guys miss with some of his strength, but he's also got the athleticism and speed to break it 73 yards? What have you seen from him in your first year working with him?
Chase is, and Coach will tell you this too, I mean, as much as Chase gets recognized and the different awards that he gets from week to week, he still comes to work every single day like a guy who's got a chip on his shoulder, a guy who's got something to prove. And, it's phenomenal. I mean, it's honestly, it's easy being his strength coach because, whereas you might have some people that you have to motivate and really kind of, walk him through some stuff, Chase knows exactly what he wants to do, and he's always the hardest person, the hardest worker in the room. So, like I said, it's easy to be his strength coach, and I enjoy watching him work. I mean, it's incredible some of the stuff he can do. He can jump, he can run. He's probably he's around 200 pounds, but lifts as much as some of our linemen who are over 300 pounds. So, I mean, he's a specimen, but as much as he is gifted, he works extremely hard, and everything that he gets is basically stuff that he's earned.
And in speaking with Coach DUPUIS, we had discussed these freshmen, how they're coming along, Cattle, Longy, Allen, and Lumley. What's it been like working with them and trying to introduce them to the concept of Division I, not only football, but Division I athleticism and Division I strength and conditioning?
Yeah, they've been great, too. I mean, we actually were very fortunate. We were able to have them up early in the summer. So we have 2 summer sessions, and a lot of the freshmen were able to come up summer session 1. So we were able to get right after it. Some of them hadn't even gone through their actual walking through of high school graduation, and we were able to get them up on campus, which was awesome. And it was just one of those things that right from the get-go, those kids, they didn't come in as freshmen, and basically, Coach had explained to them that it's not one of those things where freshmen are freshmen, I mean, everybody is looking to earn a spot, and, and these guys, I mean, guys like Cattle and Longy, I mean, they don't even act like freshmen, to be honest with you. They're mature beyond their years. They come to work with a great work ethic, and they're very gifted. So I mean, it's not a surprise. And honestly, being with those guys for maybe even 2 weeks, I could already tell that they were not the kind of kids that were going to have to, take a very long time coming up and developing. That they were going to be immediate contributors.
Before coming here to Fordham, you spent time at Monmouth being a strength coach there. Not a lot of athletic history between the two schools, specifically in football. For some of the Fordham fans who are unfamiliar with the athletic culture down there, what are some things that Monmouth is about athletically?
Yeah, I mean, it's in some respects it's very similar to Fordham in that it's a school that has also tried to push its basketball program to the top. They compete in the MAC, and they had some success in the NCAAs a couple of years back. But at the same time, it is, certainly a football program that is on the rise. And they were in the Northeast Conference for a while, and then they changed over. They were independent for 1 year, and now they compete in the Big South, which, as Coach explained, it's a pretty solid conference. I mean, you have, your number 1 ranked team, Coastal Carolina, who is at the top. You have Liberty, who just upset, I think, Montana this past week. So, I mean, you certainly have some very good competition, some real nice venues that you play at in front of, over 20,000 fans. So, but, it's one of those schools. I mean, Coach Callahan does a phenomenal job down there. I was down there for 6.5 years, and, he's a great guy. He's a great coach, and, I know he'll have the guys ready for when we see him this Saturday, and I'm looking forward to, seeing those guys again. But, it'll be good.
Thank you so much, Coach Ream, for taking the time out of your schedule to talk to us on a Monday, and best of luck for the upcoming week.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks
I appreciate you having me.
Thank you. That's Tim Ream, Fordham Strength and Conditioning Coach, talking X's and O's with us here on Monday Night Quarterback. That'll do it for this week's edition of Monday Night Quarterback. Thanks to head coach Joe Moorhead, wide receivers coach Mark Dupuis, tight end Faison Odom, defensive back Jihad Pretlow, and assistant athletic director for athletic performance Tim Ream. Next Monday, on another edition of Monday Night Quarterback, we'll look back at the Monmouth game and take a look ahead to Lafayette. We'll have our X's and O's segment with one of the coaches, and Inside the Huddle is where we'll go with some of the key players from next week's game. Until then, for Joe Marie, producer Brendan Bowers, and engineer Sean Hayner, this is Matt Morrow. Have a great week, everybody. Monday Night Quarterback is a presentation of WFUV Sports.